At this time, we'd like to invite Miss Ann Ridings to discuss the beginning and the early years of the church.
Two male escorts today, that's great. At least it's not 8, or is it 6 that's taking me out the door to go to New Hope. I feel really honored today to get to talk to you about something very dear to my heart, this church. I look out there today and I see so many wonderful faces, people I love so much and have loved through the years and on past and past. But my time is short here, so I want to get right with this and tell you about some wonderful things that happened a long time ago. There is only one charter member of this church still living, and that's Mrs. Betty McCollum. But unfortunately, she's not able to be here. Other than that, I'm the oldest person I guess I'm the only person still living, besides Betty, who remembers that day that this church was born. I don't know why the Lord has left me here. Maybe it's for this, to let you know that He's still working today, just like He worked that day a long time ago. So let me tell you a little bit about that time. There were a group of neighbors along this highway that had come from older churches. They were just regular, ordinary people, but they loved the Lord, and they didn't want to be without a church that they were familiar with and that believed in the basic Baptist doctrine. So they got to meeting in places in their homes and having prayer meetings, and then before long there was some talk about maybe do we have enough people to organize a church? And Robert Knowles and Lois Townsend were the ones that started instigating this, maybe we need a church. They would visit with us and talk to us about what we thought and what they thought. Could we, as just a few of us, get together? Could we afford to build a church or get together and have a building where we could meet and not just meet in houses? So they decided, why don't we step out on faith and get together and try to get us a church. So Mr. Sam Taylor had this old garage in his yard. He says, if you want to, you can meet in this old garage, and you can use it anytime you want to, and as for a meeting place. So the old garage, now this is not the real one, obviously, but my son has kind of gotten me introduced to AI. And so he said, well, tell it to build you one. So he and I got our heads together, and I described it as best I could. So this is what AI came up with. But the way I remembered it looks a whole lot like that old garage where we met for that church, when that church was born. Except it doesn't have the plank seats. We just had boards, long boards on each side for the people to sit in. But it was a place we could get together and we could all be together in close communion. And on Sunday, May the 14th, 1950, a group of about 20 or so people met in that old garage. And there was an air of excitement. You know, they were there to do something. Passers-by probably wondered what was going on with this group of people sitting in that old garage in their starched white shirts and ties, and the ladies with their hats and their Sunday dresses on, because it was our church. We were going to do something special. We were going to start something. Something wonderful was going to happen. When they decided they needed to start a church, they thought, well, we need an established ordained minister to guide us in what we're doing. So one of the most theologically sound preachers in our area at that time was Brother Hersey Hopper. I'm sure none of you remember him. Wonderful, wonderful preacher. And he was well studied. Everybody went to him. He was the go-to man to find something out about the Bible. He studied, he was a farmer, but he studied, and he was theologically sound and could keep us on track. So he helped us and told us what we needed to do and said, you need to get together some articles of faith, adopt those, and your covenant, church covenant, and have all that stuff ready. And you who want to become members of this church that we're going to establish need to get your letters from your home church and bring them with you to the organization. And so the ones who were prepared came and brought their letters, and they were really expecting something wonderful to happen. But they wanted so bad to have a church where they could meet and practice the way they had grown up believing in. And if you'll give me this minute, I'm going to read you the organizational minutes of this meeting that happened in this old church. May 14th, 1950, a congregation met near, now this is the actual minutes, not here, but verbiage. They met by singing and prayer offered by E. Elihu H. Martin. I'd like to just mention right here, as a little caveat, Brother Martin was well respected too, but he had I'm not sure what it was, whether he had polio or whether it was an accident, but he was a staunch preacher, but he had to preach sitting down. He had to be in a chair all the time. But pardon me, he was always ready to go when somebody called him to preach. And you'd come, and they'd bring him in, somebody would bring him in the car and then carry him in a straight back chair out to where he was going to be. So he was there too. The purpose of the meeting was to organize a missionary Baptist church. Number one, Brother W.H. Hopper was elected as a moderator. Brother A.D. Greener was selected as clerk. Brother Hopper preached the organizational sermon using Daniel 2:44 as a text. Brother A.D. Greener read the church covenant and the articles of faith. Brother Hopper, as moderator, called for all the letters of the persons who were to be charter members. The clerk read the letters, and the members were declared an organized church, being 16 members. Those 16 members were Lois Townsend and Loring Townsend, his wife, Claude Carey, who was the grandfather of Betty McCollum, Miss Minnie Carey, his wife, Walter Carey, that's Betty's father, and his wife, Bess Carey, and then Betty Sue, of course. Betty Sue McCollum, she is now. Minnie Dickerson, Leah Knowles, Doris Sue Knowles, Marilyn Knowles, and Jack Knowles, who were the family of Brother Robert Knowles. But I'll tell you why he didn't join that day. Another, Leon Robinson and Annie Robinson, Jane's mother and father. And my mother and father, William Kirksey and Opal Kirksey Dameron. Those were the charter members. The new church then went into the election of a pastor. Brother Robert Knowles was nominated, and since there were no other nominees, the nominations closed. Brother Knowles was elected pastor. Brother Lois Townsend was nominated as church clerk, and since there were no other nominees, thank you, Donald, the nomination closed and Brother Lois Townsend was elected church clerk. The name of the church was selected as Independent Missionary Baptist Church. Brother W.H. Hopper gave the charge to the church. By motion and second, a move was made to adopt the church covenant and the articles of faith. The motion was approved by the church. By motion and second, a move was made to call for the ordination of Brother Robert Knowles. By motion and second and approval of the church, the second Sunday at 11 o'clock and second Sunday night at 7:30 o'clock of each month was set as the time for regular preaching services. There being no other business, conference closed. Now, Brother Hopper suggested the name Independent, indicating that the church would be independent of any other governing body, and the name was adopted. We, Missionary Baptists, believe in autonomy, that the church is itself the only governing body of the church. Nobody can tell us what pastor to get. Nobody can tell us what to do. We accept the members of the body. Now, Brother Knowles was elected pastor, but he was not an ordained minister. So we called for a minister, and you can understand why he didn't become a charter member, because if we called him for pastor, he would be a member of Independent then, and we couldn't ordain him. So he had to be ordained by the church that he was a member of, and he was a member of Bethel. So he had to get ordained first before we could actually use him as pastor. Is that clear? Okay. Now, that was on May the 14th. May the 23rd, which was just in a few days, they had a special meeting. Brother Knowles met with them, and they had the opportunity to buy an acre lot from Leon Kirksey for $300. So they said, let's do this. Can we pay for this lot? And so they agreed they were going to buy the lot, and that's where the church would be built. But they just said, we're not going to start building the church until we get that $300 paid for. Okay. Now, they voted to have service once a month and for a pastor to preach. But these people liked church, and they wanted somebody talking to them all the time, some preacher telling them about the Lord. So they would invite area preachers to come and preach on the days when the pastor wasn't there, on the Sundays. So we had a lot of different preachers going and coming. Now, we were also getting familiar with the preachers that were there, so we might need them in the future. Then in August the 6th, 1950, from May to August, we had the lot paid for, and they voted to start a church building. Then began the process. A lot of volunteers put their hearts and soul into the old building that is now our legacy sanctuary in that area over there. The nails that were driven in there and the pieces of wood that went to build that were put there with love and with devotion to their God by the people who were putting their all into building that old church. In the meantime, Brother Knowles had been ordained, and he could actively come in as our pastor. In the meantime, our clerk resigned, and in his stead, Brother H. Ray Smith On September the 17th, 1950, was elected as clerk of the church. And he held that position until about 2023, was it, that he gave that up? I can't remember when exactly the date that he had his health was the cause of him having to give up being clerk. But he remained our church clerk all those years. Oh, I do have it in my notes. It was in 22. Brother Ray was elected to the office of clerk continually through the years until September 11th, 2022, when he resigned. Brother Lee Carter was elected in his place, and Brother Smith passed away September the 7th, 2024. January 14th, 1951, which was just the next year, or about just a few months, they organized a Sunday school because these people were anxious to worship the Lord, and they were any opportunity they have. Of course, they didn't have all the distractions we have now, but they not only met for fellowship, they wanted to meet to worship the Lord. They were devoted to the Lord and His cause. Ray Smith was elected. They organized the Sunday school, and Ray Smith was elected as the superintendent of the Sunday school, and he kept that position all these years. He was reelected all those years until he had to give that up as well because of his health. I happened to be the secretary-treasurer of that new Sunday school way back then. And my mother was a teacher, and we have several in here that were teachers in our Sunday school down through the years. And I'm afraid to call their names because I might miss somebody, but anyway, those of you who went to Sunday school here remember who they were. It was in February of 1951 the church voted to have, no, I beg your pardon, that's not relative. That's not just some of the other. Okay. On May the 20th, 1951, they organized their first, or ordained their first two deacons, Brother C.W. Carey and Brother Leon Robinson, Jane's dad, were ordained as deacons in 51. Now, through the years, we have ordained several deacons, and I don't have time to do all their names, but we appreciate every person, every deacon who has, through the years, helped to bring this church to where it is today. They have led us. They didn't do it by themselves. The members of this church have put their devotion into all of these years of service to bring that church from what it was back then until what it is now. Now, this was our first church building when it was completed. You can see that we have gathered there to celebrate, and if you can see from back there, well, let me see on the next slide, we might could see it a little better. There we are independent. If you could see them, you'd see me. I'm probably the only one in that picture still living, except for the children up front, and that I believe is maybe Jan Kaiser. I don't know if Paulette is in there. Brent, I think, may be in Betty McCollum's arms. She's holding a baby, and I think that may be Brent because she was his babysitter at that time. But from July the 8th through the 15th, 1951, we had our first revival. there were two, let's see, there were two people joined the church and baptized during that revival, and you may or may not be able to recognize them, those of you who knew them, but that's Sam and Polly Allen. They united on the 15th, and they were first to be baptized in this church. And they were also Brother Nosey's first people to be baptized. I mean, that's the first ones he baptized. But they were the first baptized here in the church. Sam went on to be ordained a deacon later. Polly was active all the years of her life. Well, they were both active all the years of their life. And talking about the carpentry and things in the church, Sam was a carpenter, along with other members in the church. We've always had talented people in our church. And he has many hours of work invested in especially the old sanctuary that we just saw a minute ago. We appreciate our members like that who gave their all. In March the 9th, 1952, we decided we need a little more preaching from our pastor, so we went to twice a month. Then in March of 52, we ordained 2 more deacons. Now, when the church was organized, my father was a deacon when he was a charter member and he was a deacon, but he was the only one until we started ordaining these others. Now, I thought you might find this interesting. We don't do this anymore, and you don't hear of it anymore much, but some of the members wanted to have a foot washing in the church. You may have heard of that, you may not. I don't wonder if any of you have ever participated in a foot washing. I did once. My stepfather went to Mount Pisgah, up around Natchez Trace, and I went with him this Sunday, and they were having foot washing, and I decided I wanted to participate. And I'll tell you, I don't believe it's an ordinance of the church, but I received one of the greatest blessings in my life by participating in that. It's an humbling situation, and it both for the one that is doing the foot washing and one who is receiving it. But it was anyway. That was the one and only time it's ever been practiced in our church. Then in August the 10th, 1952, Brother Clarence Carter, Lee's father, was elected as our pastor. And in May the 10th of 1953, there we are. We had a dedication. The building was built, and we finally had to pay for it, and it was free and clear of debt, so we could then give it to the Lord. So we had this, on this day, we had the dedication, May the 10th, 1953. That's Brother Clarence Carter at the time. And most of these pictures, I wanted you to see what the inside of the old church looked like. We had a piano. I was the first pianist, I guess you'd say, at the church. The inside was tongue and groove planks, and it was varnished to a shine. These preachers were visiting with us on that day and having something to say. The one on the beginning on the left is Brother Hedges, Brother John Hedges. The next is Brother T.L. Campbell. And then the next, Brother A.G. Hayes. And probably none of you remember any of those. But you will see Brother Hedge and Brother Campbell in our array in the corridor of pastors. The pictures are in there. Brother A.G. Hayes participated in some revivals, but he was never pastor here. I don't know why we didn't eat outside. I thought maybe it might be raining, but it might have just been too hot. It was in May. But anyway, and we didn't have any tables outside. So we put the benches together and spread the food on the benches, and that's where we ate from. Those of you probably will remember at least Ray Smith. He's got his plate full up there, and Brother Carter. Well, I thought I had one more slide, but I may have picked up the wrong one. You may be wondering what that is. That was my Sunday school class in the new church. And you can see right up front somebody you should recognize. That's Brent Smith. At the back there in the shadow, is Paulette Cruz. And then, of course, there's Jan Smith, Gerald Kirksey, and, his name, Blackwell. I think they called him Duty Blackwell, I think. None of you will probably remember those. But these, Brother Campbell became our next pastor after Brother Carter. And then John Hedges following him. Ray Smith already had 2 jobs in the church. He was a clerk and he was superintendent of Sunday school. But then in June of 1953, Brother Knowles resigned as Bible class teacher, and Ray Smith was elected to that position, which he held until we couldn't use him anymore. The pastors that have served us through the years have been Robert Knowles, Clarence Carter, T.L. Campbell, John Hedges, E.J. Baker, Mitchell Rayburn, Robert Knowles again, F.L. Ray, and he drove all the way from Goodlettsville to come down and preach for us twice a month. And Weldon Chandler was a member of our church, and from the time that Brother Ray was not our pastor until Brother Kenneth Massey came, Weldon Chandler was sort of an interim. On Sunday, October the 22nd, 1978, it was the last service Brother Ray, F.L. Ray, attended. By the meeting on November, Brother Ray had passed away. He died on November the 3rd, 1978, and he died while in service to us. To all of those past, to those now current, thank you and thank them for every prayer, every kind word, every act of friendship, every act of charity, everything you did in the name of the Lord. Thank you so much what you have done. I'm so honored to be a member of this church and to have had the opportunity to have been here for so many years. I love all of you. Thank you for letting me share this time with you.